It's been a week since Disneyland opened without restrictions. On June 15th, mask requirements and social distancing requirements were lifted. Those two changes alone have made the last week at Disneyland positively blissful. And it's weird because, you still hear people talk about Disney being packed. Of course, they were probably scared off by some of the videos and photos that were circulated on June 15th. Massive crowds out on Harbor Boulevard, massive crowds in the Esplanade. But the reality is that all of those reports were from before the park had even opened. But as you may have seen, based on our reports, what actually happened once Disneyland, opened the gates and let people into the park was actually quite the opposite. The crowds dispersed and guests enjoyed some of the breeziest, not waitingest times they'll ever experience at Disneyland. It's quite possible that this period that we're experiencing right now, it will never be as good as this again, unless something like this happens again. But I don't think it'll ever be this good again. So what happened? Why is it this way when many thought, and myself included, that it was going to be bonkers crazy as soon as they lifted restrictions? And it comes down to two factors that we discussed in previous videos. Social distancing and park capacity limits. A large part of that really is park capacity limits. The park was a little hard to navigate before June 15th, in spite of the fact that there were low capacity numbers, in the 35% range. Social distancing forced everything to be spread out. Guests were everywhere, except for where they needed to be, on a ride and in a queue. But if you lift those social distancing requirements, but you don't increase capacity, the result is Disneyland nirvana. You want to see this another way? I got a better way. I can show this to you via data. FreshBaked street team manager Magic Kingdom Boca just so happens to have a hobby of collecting wait time data from Disneyland. He built an app that stores current wait time data, and then we can compare it to historical wait time data. And what we'll find is that it supports the idea that the wait times at Disneyland are lower than they've been in years. This is Big Thunder on June 15th. Wait times on the left, time of day on the bottom. That red line is the typical max wait time, meaning what typically is the longest wait historically for a given attraction. In this case, Big Thunder maxes out typically at around 50 minutes. That means it's the longest wait you'll have throughout the day. That straight green line is the historical average across all times of day. So on average, the wait for Big Thunder is about 28 minutes. And then finally, the dark green line are the plotted wait times at any given hour. This peak right here of 55 minutes happened at a little after 11 a.m. Now what we can learn from this graph is that Big Thunder reached that typical max, but just for about 10 minutes on that day, and then it dropped like a rock for the rest of the day, almost entirely under the historical average of 30 minutes. More of the same on the 16th, and again on the 17th, even slower still on the 19th, a Saturday. Typical wait times on Saturday at Big Thunder were in the 15-minute range. And it's like this for attractions all over the park. Astro Orbiter, Star Tours, Roger Rabbit, well, except for that weird anomaly at 7 p.m. I'm not sure what that's about. What about something like Haunted Mansion, though? That's a whole different argument. But again, it looks very similar. We have an 11 a.m. spike at 70 minutes, and then it hovered above the historical average until late afternoon before hanging around the 20-minute mark just before closing. Pirates, similar spike over the historical max at 11 a.m., above the historical averages in the early afternoon before dropping below average after 5 p.m. Similar story on the 16th. Busy day early on the 17th before dropping again at 20 minutes or less for the rest of the day. How about that Saturday? Okay, you notice a trend? Two trends actually, which I'll evidence once more with Smuggler's Run. Peaks in the late morning, but still sometimes above the historical average before dropping below the historical average. That first trend, guests are hitting the most popular rides first. They're knocking them out early. Second trend, this one's more telling. People are leaving at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we've actually saw this evidenced in our trip report video from Friday night. Reports are suggesting that 80%, up to 80% of the reservations booked for a given day are showing up at park opening. Again, hype is high to get there early in the morning and maximize their day, which is why we're still, even though the park is not anywhere close to capacity and everybody's getting in, we're still seeing large crowds form in front of the gates at as early as 6 a.m. But then conversely, something like 70% of those guests are then leaving by 4 or 5 p.m. It's a fascinating thing to watch. Here are a couple of my own personal armchair observations. They're leaving earlier because they're getting everything they want to do done earlier than maybe they thought they might. And that this trend of people arriving early and leaving early is the opposite of how things went pre-COVID. In the before time, the park got more crowded as the day went on. Now they're just going home. And there's two reasons for that. First is that there are no nighttime shows. I was going to say that there's little keeping them there, but actually there's practically nothing keeping guests in the park after 4 or 5 p.m. after they've completed whatever their daily objectives were. It's either just go on more rides or go home. They're choosing to go home. No nighttime shows. No doubt Disney has observed this, and they're going on a full court press right now, trying to get shows back in the park, not just nighttime shows, but all shows really. But specifically, we're seeing fireworks begin again on July 4th and nightly thereafter. The second reason, and this is actually kind of it's due partly to the first reason. The second reason is annual pass holders. Annual pass holders generally would show up late and stay late. Now, I'm personally an exception to this. I prefer to show up early and leave early. But I think that the description of your average pass holder was that they would arrive late in the park, maybe at noon or so, and stay late to catch one of the nighttime shows. So as APs arrived, capacity went up, and so too did the wait times. But the current environment today, I think, is forcing the AP holder who is buying the single day ticket to act opposite of their usual. They're getting there early. They're getting there early, like so many people, getting what they want to do done and then going home at 4 or 5 o'clock. It feels like everybody, really, not just the single ticket holders, the people coming in from out of town, or the casual visitor, not just them, but everybody is trying to get there early and knock out as much as they can early. It's strange because a visit today by your typical annual pass holder probably feels a lot like one of a casual visitor. I have felt that myself. I have felt the urgency in the park. I have felt the need or the desire to spend more time in the park than I normally do because I don't have that comfort, that freedom of the annual pass. And this has been a fascinating thing for me to observe, watching the crowd patterns change because of what's happened. I can't wait to see how this evolves, but I will say that I don't expect this to last very long. Maybe another week or two. I don't know, a month perhaps at the outside. I feel like come July, things are going to change. The first domino, obviously, is going to be fireworks. Once you get fireworks in the park, that changes everything. That changes patterns completely. So I feel like that could be the date where everything shifts back to the way it was, or at least not completely, but it'll begin that shift. Because now you have a reason to be at the park at 9 p.m. Or 8 p.m., and whereas before you didn't. Now you have a reason to arrive at the park at noon. Park's going to close now at 10, starting in July, by the way. Don't forget that. We're getting an extra hour. It's another reason to shift your arrival time a little bit later, perhaps. So we're going to see the pattern actually revert back, where it's going to be less crowded in the morning. You're not going to see the lineup of guests out in front of the gates at 6 a.m. I don't think you're going to see that at all. So it's going to go back to just normal arriving procedures. It's going to be slower in the morning. That used to be my thing, man. I used to love going in the morning because the first 2 hours were dead. The first 2 hours you could knock stuff out all day. We're going to get something close to that, and that starts on July 4th with the arrival of fireworks. The second reason why things will change in July is that the expectation is that Disney will begin to increase capacity. We've been living good right now. We've been living really good in June. Disney kept it at, 35 or 40. I can't even believe it would even have been 50, but expect that to go up as they get more stuff online, as they get more cast members, as they get supply chains figured out, as they get more things figured out, more attractions open, more dining locations open. That increases capacity inside the park, which means they can increase capacity to the park. And then watch for that 11 a.m. spike to move forward a couple hours into the early afternoon or something like that. And actually, watching the relationship between the wait times and the historical average is going to be very telling in the future, because I do expect, 100%, I do expect Disney to increase capacity. So if the wait times do meet or go above the historical average, then that means people are showing up, capacity is increased. But if the wait times stay below the historical average, that means that people aren't buying tickets. Because like I said, I do think capacity is going to go up. The question is, will people buy tickets in response to that? Will they buy more tickets? If you look at the app right now, there's lots of tickets available for July. Right now, the reservation calendar. If you look at that, lots of openings for July, August, I'm sure as well. So it's going to be pretty telling if that happens. If those wait times stay low, people aren't buying tickets, and that could be a trigger for Disney to maybe light a fire under the annual pass program. And that means, by that I mean don't burn it, I mean get it going again. And one way we'll know is about when they tell us about the AP program. If they give us an announcement sometime this summer or early fall perhaps, then that means they didn't get the numbers that they were hoping for, for reservations and that kind of thing. But if we hear from them at the end of the year, towards the holidays, towards Christmas, then that means that they were trying to capitalize, maximize the number of single-day tickets that they've been selling using the reservation system, and that they were happy with that and happy with putting off the annual pass program. So stay tuned for that. Obviously, we're going to stay tuned for that as well. So stay tuned to Fresh Baked. And with that, I hope I haven't bored you guys with this analytical conversation. My logic brain loves this type of stuff. So if this is, if this is good for you, then you found the right place. But otherwise, you know what? Follow us on Instagram at _FreshBaked and on Twitter at FreshBakedDisney. That's fresh with no E. And on TikTok at FreshBakedDisney. And if you like our show and you want to show your support, please do consider joining our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/freshbaked. Otherwise, thanks again for watching, everybody. We love you very much. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. Fresh Baked.